You are not here to beg life for crumbs. You are here to command it through the power of your imagination. The world you see outside is but a mirror of the inner pictures you persist in holding. If you dare to dwell in the end, if you dare to live now as though your dream were already realized, the unseen forces of life must align to bring it forth. Everything begins in consciousness. Every achievement, every fortune, every transformation first lived in the imagination of one who refused to accept appearances as final. You are that one. Within you is the creative power of God, clothed in human form. To live your imagined future is not to wait for it, but to step into it now, mentally, emotionally, faithfully. Do not concern yourself with the how. The bridge of incidents will appear. Your task is only to assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, to saturate yourself with its reality until it feels more natural than your present circumstances. Speak from it, think from it, walk from it. Let every moment of your inner conversation reflect that you already are the one you wish to be. Life bends to your assumption. Live in the end, and the end will live in you. The future you imagine is not distant. It is here, awaiting your acceptance. Claim it boldly. Refuse to slip back into doubt. Persist, and the invisible will harden into fact. So tonight, clothe yourself in the joy of the accomplished desire. Rest in that state and watch the world reshape itself to mirror the image you hold within. Your outer world mirrors your inner imagination, because every circumstance, every relationship, and every opportunity you encounter is but a reflection of what you have entertained within yourself. The thoughts you dwell upon, the feelings you nurture, and the assumptions you persist in holding shape the stage upon which your life unfolds. If you believe yourself limited, the world will echo that limitation back to you. If you assume abundance, life will clothe itself in abundance. The outer is powerless without the inner cause, and when you change the imaginal activity, the reflection must inevitably change in response. Live now as though your dream is already real by moving inwardly into the state where nothing is missing, nothing is lacking, and nothing stands between you and the fulfillment you desire. When you assume the wish fulfilled, you are no longer reaching toward a distant goal, but inhabiting it as your present reality. This shift in consciousness is the secret doorway through which the unseen becomes seen, for imagination is the only creative power. To live now means to think from your desire rather than of it, to walk as the one who already possesses the blessing, and to feel the joy of completion before a single outer change has occurred. The mind protests, the senses deny, yet your faith in imagination overrules appearances. In this sacred act, the invisible pattern of your future begins to solidify and attract to you the necessary events, people, and circumstances. You need not struggle or force outcomes, for life rearranges itself automatically to mirror the state you occupy. The moment you claim it inwardly, the outer world is compelled to echo it. To live now is to become one with your dream, so completely that nothing can separate you from its manifestation. All creation begins in consciousness, because nothing can come into being without first existing as an idea, a vision, or an assumption within the unseen realm of imagination. Before the painter lifts a brush, the image has already formed in the mind. Before the builder lays a stone, the structure has already been designed and lived in through thought. The world is but the outpicturing of states of consciousness assumed and sustained, and everything that appears solid and permanent is the hardened shadow of a once invisible thought. You may look at circumstances and believe they dictate your future, yet the truth is circumstances themselves are born of your inner activity. To change the world, you must first change what you accept as true within yourself. Consciousness is the seed ground of reality, and the feelings you allow to dominate are the waters that nourish that seed. When you persist in an assumption, even against evidence to the contrary, life bends to fulfill it. Every invention, every discovery, every success first existed in consciousness before it appeared in the physical world. You are continually shaping tomorrow by the imaginal acts of today. What you consent to in imagination, what you rehearse inwardly with feeling, must one day clothe itself in the fabric of experience. Nothing comes to you from outside, for the outer is only an echo of the inner state you occupy. To recognize that all creation begins in consciousness is to awaken to your true creative power. No longer are you at the mercy of appearances, for you understand appearances themselves are creations of past assumptions. The world is a mirror, and imagination is the cause, shaping reality according to the images and feelings you dare to claim as your own. You are the creative power of God in human form, because the same life, intelligence, and imagination that spoke worlds into existence is the essence of your being. This power is not distant, waiting somewhere beyond the sky to act on your behalf. It lies within you as your awareness, your ability to imagine, and your capacity to assume states of consciousness. Every time you think a thought, hold a belief, or feel a deep emotion, you are exercising this creative power. The ideas you accept as true, the pictures you entertain, and the assumptions you persist in living from are not idle activities, but the shaping forces of your reality. You are the center of your world, and from this center radiates the unseen energy that molds the outer circumstances of your life. This is why Neville Goddard taught that imagination is God in action. It is through your imagination that you bring forth what has never been seen before. The invisible becomes visible when you clothe yourself in a new state of being and persist there. When you assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, you are not pretending. You are using the creative law by which all things are made. The world is simply reflecting back to you the state you occupy within. If you wish to experience a different life, you must first dare to experience a different self inwardly. Your current circumstances are not the measure of your power, but the residue of past assumptions. In every moment you are free to choose a new state, a new identity, a new vision of life, and to sustain it until it hardens into fact. As you awaken to the realization that you are the creative power of God in human form, you cease looking outward for permission or rescue and begin looking inward for direction and creation. This inner shift releases you from fear and limitation because you recognize that nothing has power over you except what you grant through your imagination. To know yourself as this power is to reclaim your divine inheritance, to live consciously as the author of your experience, shaping your world from within. Don't worry about how life arranges the bridge of events, because the creative process is not yours to manage in detail. Your role is not to dictate the sequence of steps, the timing, or the mechanics through which your desire will unfold, but simply to assume the end as already accomplished, and to rest in the feeling of its fulfillment. The mind, conditioned by logic and limitation, constantly asks, how will this happen? How can such a thing be possible? How can circumstances rearrange themselves to bring me this outcome? Yet the truth is that the how belongs to a higher wisdom, an unseen intelligence that connects all things in perfect order. When you assume your desire fulfilled and persist in that state, invisible threads begin weaving together a chain of incidents, encounters, and opportunities that you could never have consciously devised. This is the bridge of events. It is the natural yet often mysterious path by which life carries you from your current state into the state you have imagined. You do not need to map it, predict it, or interfere with it. All that is required is faith. Faith that the inner assumption is reality. Faith that imagination is the creative power. And faith that the unseen hand of life knows more than the reasoning mind. Often the bridge appears ordinary, disguised as everyday happenings. Yet each moment is part of a greater orchestration, guiding you toward the manifestation of your desire. What may seem like a chance meeting, an unexpected delay, or even an apparent setback is, in truth, part of the perfect arrangement, moving you toward the fulfillment of what you have claimed inwardly. To worry about how is to step out of faith and back into doubt, to try to control what is not yours to control. The soil does not ask how the seed will grow. It simply allows the process to unfold in silence, knowing the design is already complete. Likewise, you must let go of the question of means and dwell only on the end. The end contains within itself every step necessary for its realization. The moment you claim it in imagination, the pattern is set, and life begins to rearrange itself in harmony with your assumption. Trust the process. Trust the unseen wisdom that governs all creation. Your only responsibility is to remain faithful to the vision, to return again and again to the state of the wish fulfilled, and to refuse the temptation to analyze or doubt. The bridge of events will appear, and you will be led across it, often so naturally that only in retrospect will you recognize how perfectly everything was arranged. Surrender the how, and rest in the joy of knowing the end is secure, for life itself has already taken up the task of fulfilling it. Assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, because this is the key that unlocks the hidden creative power within you. Imagination clothed in feeling is the secret law of creation, and to assume is to accept inwardly as true what the outer world has not yet revealed. You are not asked to struggle, to force, or to beg for change. You are asked to enter the state of already having, and to dwell there with the ease of one who knows the outcome is certain. When you assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, you take possession of the end in consciousness, and once claimed within, it must appear without. This act is more than idle daydreaming, for daydreams are fantasies entertained without conviction. To assume the wish fulfilled is to anchor yourself emotionally in the reality of your desire until it feels natural, until your senses may deny it, but your inner being knows it as accomplished. Feeling is the secret, because feeling impresses the subconscious mind, and the subconscious mind is the fertile ground from which all outer conditions arise. When you feel something deeply, you consent to it, and the subconscious accepts it without argument, setting in motion the invisible currents that arrange the outer world in harmony with your inner state. Every great change in life begins with such an assumption. The poor man assumes wealth and begins to walk in the dignity of abundance, and life reorganizes itself to match his new conception. The lonely heart assumes companionship, and the world mirrors back relationships that reflect the love already accepted within. The sick one assumes health and feels the vitality of being whole, and the body follows the command of consciousness. To assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled is to step into the end and live from it rather than toward it. This assumption must be consistent, for wavering between states produces delay and confusion. Each time doubt arises, return quietly to the end. Feel yourself into the reality you desire until it becomes the most natural thing in the world. Persist in this state, not through force, but through gentle conviction, knowing that the law is certain and unfailing. The moment you feel the reality of your wish more deeply than the evidence of your senses, the process of manifestation has already begun. The world cannot resist the command of feeling, for feeling is the language of creation. Do not be discouraged if nothing appears to change instantly. Seeds take time to sprout, but their growth is inevitable once planted. Your assumption is that seed, and the soil of the subconscious never fails to bring forth what is sound. Each day, carry yourself as though you already are the one you wish to be, and let your inner conversations, your tone, and your attitude reflect that fulfillment. In time, often in ways beyond your ability to predict, life will unfold to reveal the state you faithfully inhabited within. Assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, and you shift the center of your being. You cease to hope and begin to know. You cease to wait and begin to live. You cease to ask when and begin to rest in now. This assumption is the bridge between the invisible and the visible, between imagination and fact, and it never fails to deliver to the one who dares to persist, speak, think, and act from your desire, because the state you occupy within yourself determines the experiences that unfold around you. Most people approach their goals as something distant, something to be reached one day, and by doing so they keep their desires outside themselves, as though they belong to another world. But the secret of creation is to bring the end into the present, to embody it so completely that it becomes your natural point of view. When you speak from your desire, you give voice to the reality you have claimed inwardly. When you think from your desire, you generate inner conversations that affirm its presence rather than its absence. When you act from your desire, you move as the one who already possesses what you once sought. This is not pretense or make-believe, but a deliberate use of the creative law that governs all manifestation. Thoughts, words, and actions are not isolated fragments of your life. They are currents of energy flowing from the state of consciousness you occupy. To speak from your desire means you allow only words that align with its fulfillment to pass your lips. You stop talking about what you lack, stop retelling stories of limitation, and instead begin expressing gratitude, confidence, and expectancy. Even in casual conversation, you gently steer your language toward the end you have claimed. This does not mean you boast or announce your desire before it appears, but that inwardly and outwardly your words mirror the feeling of the accomplished fact. To think from your desire means you govern your inner dialogue with discipline and tenderness. Every day the mind offers doubts, questions, and reminders of the current conditions, but you choose to return again and again to the inner scene of fulfillment. You rehearse mentally the life you wish to live until it feels so real that the old state loses its grip. This inner rehearsal is not wasted imagination. It is the very act of creation. Your inner conversations impress the subconscious, and the subconscious responds by organizing your outer world to reflect the state you persist in imagining. To act from your desire is to let your behavior be guided by the assumption that your wish is already fulfilled. You carry yourself with the confidence of the one who has already arrived. You make decisions from the standpoint of having, not of hoping. You choose, invest, speak, and move as though the new reality is already your own. In doing so, you align the visible with the invisible, and life responds by opening doors, arranging meetings, and providing evidence that matches your assumption. Acting from your desire is not forcing results, but allowing your actions to flow naturally from the new identity you have chosen inwardly. This alignment of speaking, thinking, and acting creates a unified field of consciousness that is irresistible to life itself. When your words affirm one thing, but your thoughts contradict it, or when your actions suggest doubt, while your imagination tries to hold faith, you send mixed signals to the subconscious and delay the manifestation. But when all three, speech, thought, and action, move in harmony from the end, the creative law works quickly and smoothly. It cannot fail, for it is impersonal and absolute. Living this way requires persistence and a willingness to withdraw your attention from appearances. The senses may insist nothing has changed, but your inner state is the true cause, and the outer must follow in time. Each time you speak as though you have already received, think as though you are already there, and act as though the desire is accomplished. You deepen the grooves of this new state until it becomes your dominant reality. You stop struggling for manifestation and begin living from it. This is the art of assumption in action, and it transforms not only your results, but your identity. You cease to be someone chasing a dream and become someone living it. You train yourself to inhabit your chosen reality so completely that it hardens into fact around you. Speaking, thinking, and acting from your desire is how you embody the power of creation deliberately rather than unconsciously. It is how you align with the life you wish to experience and call it forth into visible form through the simple yet profound act of living from the end. Persistence makes the invisible visible, because the unseen reality of imagination requires sustained attention before it solidifies into fact. The world you experience today is not the sudden outcome of a single fleeting thought, but the hardened shadow of assumptions that were once repeated, nourished, and accepted as true. One imaginal act may plant the seed, but persistence is the steady watering that brings that seed to bloom. Every desire is already finished in the unseen realm, yet it awaits your unwavering faith and continuous dwelling in its reality to appear in form. Without persistence, the vision remains a possibility. With persistence, it becomes an inevitability. When you first assume the wish fulfilled, it may feel strange, even false, because the senses argue against it. The outer world continues to echo the old state, and the temptation is to abandon the assumption and conclude that nothing works. But persistence demands that you ignore appearances and remain faithful to the unseen. Just as the farmer does not dig up the seed each day to check its progress, you must allow your assumption to take root in the subconscious, trusting that the process is unfolding perfectly. It is not the single act of assumption that guarantees the result, but the consistent return to that state until it feels natural, until it becomes your dwelling place. Persistence is not forceful struggle but quiet conviction. It is the refusal to be moved by delay, denial, or contradiction. Each time the old state reasserts itself, you gently withdraw your attention and return to the imaginal scene of fulfillment. This repeated turning inward strengthens the new state and weakens the old, until eventually the subconscious accepts the new reality as fact. Once accepted, it expresses itself automatically, drawing circumstances, people, and events into alignment with your assumption. What once seemed impossible becomes inevitable because persistence has impressed it deeply upon the creative power within you. Every invention, every work of art, every breakthrough in history was the product of persistence. The idea first existed invisibly in the imagination of the one who conceived it, and only through repeated attention and unshakable faith did it become visible to the world. Consider the poet who holds an image in mind until words crystallize around it, or the architect who persists in a vision until stone and steel take shape. So too with your desires, they live first in imagination, and persistence is the bridge by which they cross into visibility. The mind often rebels against persistence because it craves instant results. It wants proof before belief, evidence before faith. Yet the law of creation works in reverse. Faith comes first and evidence follows. By persisting in the unseen, you compel the outer world to rearrange itself. The length of time required depends not on the difficulty of the desire, but on the depth of your persistence. The greater your consistency, the faster the unseen becomes seen. Even when nothing appears to change, persistence is at work beneath the surface, weaving together the threads of the bridge of events that will lead you naturally to your goal. Persistence also requires a change in self-concept. You must persist not only in the desire itself, but in the identity of the one who already possesses it. To imagine wealth while continuing to think of yourself as poor is to contradict yourself. To imagine love while continuing to feel unworthy is to sabotage your assumption. Persistence means embodying the new self until it feels like your truest nature. Each time you return to this identity, you deepen the impression, and eventually it becomes the only state you know. Then the outer world, which is only a reflection, must conform. Life will test your persistence with appearances that seem to deny your assumption. These are not signs of failure but opportunities to stand firm. When the senses scream, impossible, persistence whispers, already done. When circumstances contradict you, persistence invites you to look within and see the invisible more vividly than the visible. This steadfastness is the true mark of mastery, for it is easy to believe when evidence supports you, but it is creative power to persist when all appearances oppose you. Persistence makes the invisible visible because it transfers the weight of reality from the outer to the inner, from the seen to the unseen. By persisting in imagination, you anchor yourself in the higher law that governs all creation, and in time the outer world has no choice but to echo the inner conviction. The unseen becomes seen, the dream becomes fact, and what was once invisible to the senses stands before you as undeniable reality. Through persistence, you prove to yourself that imagination is not fantasy but the very substance of creation, waiting only for your sustained faith to give it form. The imagined future exists now. Accept it because creation is finished and every possibility already exists within the vast field of consciousness. The future you long for is not something to be built piece by piece through effort and struggle, but a reality already complete, waiting for you to occupy it through imagination and assumption. When you imagine yourself as the person you wish to be, when you feel the reality of your fulfilled desire, you are not fabricating a fantasy. You are tuning your awareness to a state that already is. To accept the imagined future is to align yourself with the truth that nothing is created anew, only selected. For all states exist eternally within the infinite imagination of God, and you are the channel through which one state is chosen over another. Most live as prisoners of appearances, measuring their possibilities by what the senses report. They look at present circumstances and conclude that the future must be an extension of the visible now. Yet the law of consciousness declares that the visible is only the shadow of the invisible, and by altering your inner state you alter the shadow that follows. The imagined future exists in the eternal present, and when you dare to accept it as now, life begins to bend itself to reflect that acceptance. The moment you inhabit your desire mentally and emotionally, you collapse the illusion of distance between now and later, and the unseen becomes as real to you as the seen. Acceptance is the key. To accept means to surrender the old identity, to release the insistence that reality is bound by current facts, and to rest in the conviction that the state you have imagined is already yours. You need not know how the bridge of events will appear, for the bridge is contained within the end. The end draws the means, the assumed state orchestrates its own unfolding. What you must do is refuse to waver between what is and what you desire, choosing instead to abide in the consciousness of already having. Acceptance is not struggle, nor is it blind hope. It is quiet certainty, the stillness of one who knows that imagination is the only reality, and that what is felt inwardly must manifest outwardly. The imagined future exists now as a living reality in consciousness. Every time you picture yourself in that state, every time you feel the thrill of its accomplishment, you are not creating but touching what already is. You may ask, if it already exists, why do I not see it? The answer is that visibility depends upon awareness. Just as a radio must be tuned to a particular frequency to receive a station that is already broadcasting, so must you tune your inner state to the frequency of your desire. The station exists whether you hear it or not, and your imagined future exists whether you see it or not. By assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled, you adjust your inner tuning and bring into visibility that which was always present. This truth transforms the way you approach life. No longer do you wait anxiously for change, for waiting implies distance, and distance denies the now. Instead, you live in the awareness that the future is already accomplished. You walk as though it is true, speak as though it is true, think as though it is true, and feel as though it is true. This consistency of acceptance impresses the subconscious, and once impressed, the subconscious expresses. Outer conditions shift, often in ways you could not predict, but always in harmony with the state you have accepted as real. Resistance arises only when you cling to appearances and doubt the unseen. The mind protests, the senses contradict, and the old self insists on evidence before belief. Yet persistence in acceptance dissolves resistance. Each time you return to the inner reality of your fulfilled desire, you weaken the grip of the old state and strengthen the new. Slowly, the balance tips, and what once felt like imagination becomes natural, while what once felt factual loses its power. The outer world, being only a reflection, must then conform to the new assumption. To accept the imagined future is to embrace the eternal now, where past, present, and future are but different expressions of one timeless reality. You are never truly waiting, for the future is not ahead of you but within you. The instant you claim it in consciousness, it becomes your reality. The world may take time to rearrange itself, but the creative act is already complete. Acceptance lifts you above fear, doubt, and limitation, because you realize you are not striving to become. You already are. You are not seeking to attain. You are revealing what is eternally true in imagination. The imagined future exists now. Accept it by dwelling in it as your present fact. Each night as you fall asleep, surrender to the feeling of its fulfillment. Each day as you move through life, carry yourself in the tone of the one who already possesses what was once only desired. Do not postpone your joy, your confidence, or your gratitude until conditions change, for such postponement keeps the desire forever ahead of you. Instead, express those feelings now, for they belong to the state you have chosen, and in expressing them you confirm your acceptance. All transformation begins with this act of inner acceptance. You are not waiting for permission, opportunity, or proof, for the imagined future you long for is already present within the infinite storehouse of states. Choose it, accept it, live in it, persist in it until it feels more real than the facts that surround you, and soon those facts will dissolve and reassemble themselves to mirror the unseen reality you dared to accept. The imagined future is not tomorrow, it is now, and your willingness to accept it is the only doorway through which it enters your world. Claim your future boldly, and refuse to doubt because hesitation is the thief of creation, and uncertainty weakens the power that is yours by divine right. Within you lives the same creative force that shaped the stars, breathed life into humanity, and called worlds into existence. This force is imagination clothed in consciousness, and it responds with precision to the assumptions you persist in holding. When you dare to claim your future as now, when you step inwardly into the state of already being and already having, you activate this infinite power and set in motion the law that makes the unseen visible. Doubt, however, is the great disruptor. It is the wavering between two states, the divided mind that says, perhaps and maybe, instead of is done. To refuse to doubt is not to silence every fleeting thought, but to consistently return to the end, to dwell so firmly in your chosen reality that no appearance can shake you from it. The act of claiming your future boldly is not arrogance, but alignment with truth. All states already exist in the eternal now, and what you call your future is merely the selection of one state over another. The timid soul waits for circumstances to grant permission, but the awakened soul knows that consciousness alone is cause, and that choosing boldly is the very act by which creation is revealed. To claim is to assume, to inhabit, to accept as true within regardless of what stands without. It is to speak from the end, think from the end, and feel from the end until it becomes the natural atmosphere of your being. Life cannot withhold what you have accepted as already yours, for the outer is compelled to mirror the inner. Doubt appears whenever the senses contradict the imaginal act, whenever time seems to delay the promise, whenever reason demands to know how it shall unfold. But faith does not argue with appearances. Faith does not calculate time. Faith does not bargain with reason. Faith rests in the unseen, knowing it is more real than the visible. To refuse doubt is to refuse the tyranny of appearances, and to hold fast to the truth that imagination creates reality. Every time you turn away from doubt and return to the end, you strengthen the new state and weaken the grip of the old. Eventually, the new becomes your dwelling place, and the world has no choice but to conform. Claiming your future boldly requires persistence, for the mind has long been conditioned to measure reality by the senses. Yet the senses are merely reporters of past assumptions, not predictors of what must be. What you see today is not destiny but residue, the fading echo of previous states. To judge by appearances is to remain bound by the past. To claim your future boldly is to declare independence from the evidence of the senses, and to align yourself with the eternal law of imagination. You must speak as though it is already so, not as a performance for others, but as an inward decree that shapes reality itself. The world often admires caution and hesitation, but creation responds to boldness. To boldly claim is to declare that your desired future is not a possibility but a certainty. It is to rise above the timid hope of someday and live in the assurance of now. When you walk with this conviction, you carry a different energy, and life organizes itself around that energy. Opportunities appear, people are drawn to you, doors open, and paths unfold, not because you chase them, but because your inner state demands their appearance. The bridge of events is arranged, often in ways you could never devise, but it is your bold acceptance that calls it forth. Refusing doubt does not mean you will never feel its tug, but it does mean you refuse to entertain it as truth. Doubt may whisper that it is taking too long, that you are unworthy, that circumstances are too rigid. Yet you answer each whisper with a return to the end. You feel again the joy of fulfillment, the relief of accomplishment, the gratitude of possession, and in doing so, you reaffirm your claim. Doubt cannot withstand persistence. Like shadows before the rising sun, it dissolves when confronted by the light of unwavering assumption. Claiming your future boldly also transforms your sense of self. No longer do you see yourself as someone striving to become, but as someone who already is. You stop postponing joy, confidence, and gratitude until the outer world changes and begin expressing them now, for they belong to the state you have accepted. This shift in identity is the true essence of creation, For the world mirrors not what you desire, but who you are conscious of being. When you boldly accept yourself as the one who has already achieved, already received, already become, the world reorganizes to reflect that acceptance. There is a sacred authority in claiming your future without hesitation. You no longer beg life to deliver, you command it by living in the end. This authority does not come from force or arrogance, but from alignment with divine law. Creation is finished, and every state already exists. By boldly selecting your desired state and refusing doubt, you align yourself with the eternal truth that imagination is reality. In this alignment, you discover that nothing is impossible, for nothing is outside the reach of consciousness. As you persist in this boldness, you will notice that life flows with greater ease. What once seemed distant begins to approach. What once felt impossible begins to unfold naturally. The invisible takes shape, and the imagined becomes tangible. This is not magic or chance but law, the unfailing response of life to the assumptions you dare to hold without wavering. You are never punished for your doubts, but you are delayed by them. For doubt keeps you oscillating between states rather than firmly anchored in one. Refusal to doubt is the refusal to delay. To claim your future boldly and refuse to doubt is to live as a creator rather than a victim, as an awakened soul rather than a drifting one. It is to stand in the authority of consciousness and declare, "It is done," and to hold to that declaration until the world echoes it back to you. Life bends to the bold, not because boldness manipulates it, but because boldness is faith in action. Refuse to let appearances, time, or reason steal your conviction. Hold fast to the end, persist in the assumption, and watch as the invisible becomes visible. The future you dare to claim with boldness is the only future you will ever know, for the law cannot fail and imagination never lies.